Hello everyone and welcome back to the TAPED podcast, the most lonesome crowded podcast in the world. I'm your host, Nostalgia, and joining me today is, as always, my co-host,
Mickey T.
And today we have another special guest. We haven't had one for a while, coming at you straight from the power of the internet. No, what does Boogie say? Through the power of the internet.
Yeah.
Please welcome Charlise, or CLJesse on Album of the Year. Say hello.
I like Weezer.
She likes Weezer.
Hell yeah.
And today we're doing a Weezer worst to best.
Alright, number one,
Yes.
it's Ratitude. It's just the best one. I don't even know what the point in doing the rest
Latitude.
of the list is. Ratitude's just the best.
No, what are you on? Pacific Daydream is the best one.
Shit, you're right. Never mind. Podcast over. See you guys.
No. Nah, for real though, we're going to be doing a Modest Mouse worst to best. And
Modest.
Yay.
yeah, Charlise is our resident Modest Mouse fangirl, so we're ready for the shit.
She has
Yay.
Isaac Brock's face tattooed on her own face.
I'm wearing the Modest Mouse shirt. I'm verified, okay?
So I think, without further ado, we got 9 projects to count down, some comps and some EPs. And yeah, we're going to also forget that the first couple of projects don't exist, alright?
The cassettes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Those don't
cassette tape
exist.
is not counting the cassettes.
Yes. See, we hate other cassettes here. We're the only ones.
Yeah,
we're
we're
the only
just
ones allowed.
we're posers.
There's a lot of cassette nationalism I'm feeling here, and I don't know how to feel about that.
Anti-cassetticism.
Of course. Anyways, yeah, I think we should begin. Yeah, number 9 picks. Nostalgia, you go first.
My number 9 pick was Sad Sappy Sucker.
My number 9
My
pick...
number 9. Oh,
Oh.
I'll
Who's
go.
going?
I'll go.
Me or
Then
you?
you go.
Okay.
I'll go. I chose Strangers to Ourselves.
My number 9 is Strangers to Ourselves.
Do you want to start since you have the same?
Yeah. This album, I don't think it's very good. In fact, I don't like it all that much. I would say it's the most commercial sounding Modest Mouse album, and to be honest, it's just an absolute fucking mess. It's somewhat varied in its sound, but at the same time, it's just stylistically, all over the place. The production is very bland, it's uninteresting, it's way too airy. It gave me a headache, and I don't know, it's just so inconsistent. You get the odd good song and some good songwriting here and there, but there's just songs that are just, why the fuck did you make this moment? Like Pistol, obviously.
Oh god.
This album's bad, I don't want to talk about it.
You have to. This is what this is about.
Bad album, move on.
Apologize to Isaac right now.
Fuck
No.
you, Isaac. Make good music again. Alright. Am I going or are you going?
You're
Yeah,
going,
you're
you have
going.
the same.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say that Strangers to Ourselves is a pretty apt title because they seem to be a stranger to their own fucking sound. There is none of what made Modest Mouse good in the first place to be found on this record at all. When it isn't being just bland, generic indie rock, it's being outright fucking aggravating. On the aforementioned Pistol, which is, I don't even know what to say about that. But as someone who's been a fan of this band for years, this album pisses me off a lot. And I'm kind of disappointed the band made it. No, not kind of, very.
Of course.
Well, I didn't pick Strangers to Ourselves. I went for Sappy Sad Sucker because I just think
Sad Sappy Sucker.
No,
Get it right.
I decide the order. I think it
If
has
it makes
its
you
moment.
feel better, I always mix it up too.
I think it has its moments, almost exclusively in the first half. A lot of the material here is just very clearly underwritten, underperformed, and it's hard to really come out of this satisfied, in my opinion. I feel like this is only something that really hardcore, diehard fans are gonna appreciate, and even then, I don't think it's really something that's gonna stand out as anything special in their discography. I just think it's a bit of a mess. It just doesn't really fit into me, especially like the time it was released in between some great albums, which I'll get into. It just seems like a bit of an awkward mess that was kind of just put out there. Yeah, don't care much for it.
All right. My favorite track off of Strangers to Ourselves was Coyotes. The absolute worst tracks are Pistol, Sugar Boats, and Shit in Your Cut.
My favorites, if I have to pick some, I'm very salty about this album. The title track, Ansel, and Be Brave, and my least favorites are Lampshades on Fire, Pistol, The Ground Walks with Time in a Box, and Sugar Boats.
Oh, my brain froze. My favorite tracks are pretty much the entire first half of the album. My least favorite tracks are pretty much the entire second half of this album. When shit starts getting weird and 10 seconds long, that's
valid.
That's where I'm
Very
at.
valid. All right, moving on to our number 8 picks. I chose Sad Sappy Sucker.
For number 8...
Oh, go.
For number 8, I chose We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank.
For number 8, I chose Strangers to Ourselves.
So, I guess I'll go first.
Yeah, I'll do the same order.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, you went first.
You went first, mate.
I thought you were on about when we were talking about the... Wait, never mind.
Just go.
We on some podcast shit.
We're professionals.
Okay, anyway, it's a relatively short compilation album of songs, that were cut from some of the earlier Modest Mouse records, and I'm a bit iffy on this compilation, as there are plenty of songs here that I actually think are really good, and they're just songs that are just like, okay, thank fuck they didn't make it onto any record. Like, the songs are relatively short, they don't really do much in their short time spans, they feel a bit underperformed, but at least the longer tracks have a serviceable amount of content, and, the songs around the back end are pretty funny in how unfinished and weird they are in concept, and that's all I really have to take away from it.
Is it me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nostalgia's
I went
on
last
airplane
time.
mode today.
Bro, I went last time. I'm not on airplane mode. I'll go.
I only went last because me and Charlise picked the same record.
Alright.
Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm going. It is I who is on airplane mode. Plot twist. Okay. This album isn't like the last one. It doesn't piss me off. It just makes me sad. It's so just like, it's not bland in like an annoying way that Strangers to Ourselves is, but it's still bland, and I feel like a lot, like, especially following up, not to spoil, but like one of my like favorite records of theirs. It's like such like a quality drop, and frankly, I love Isaac Brock as a vocalist, but I feel like on songs this clean and sterile, he doesn't really work that well, and it makes a lot of like nice sounding like just bland indie rock that much worse, I'd say. It's not terrible, it's just disappointing.
I was just laughing because I thought you finished it. It made me sad.
It made me sad. I was tempted.
I don't blame you.
I was tempted to just say it made me sad and then not continue. As opposed to the Modest Mouse albums that don't make me sad.
Well, my pick was the pretty obvious last pick for most people, but I have a bit of an unpopular opinion. I actually quite like Strangers to Ourselves. I think it's just a testament. It's a testament to how much I like Modest Mouse that this is second last, but
am I getting out?
Because it is second last, I will kind of focus more on the negatives. I feel like it's my duty to kind of make this worst to best, at least somewhat cohesive.
Make it somewhat unbiased.
Right.
Okay,
at its
but
core,
am I getting outstand right now?
I don't know. I'll All I'm gonna
Yeah.
say is that every other album above here is an 8 out of 10 plus for me. Right, Strangers to Ourselves. At its very core, I think it sounds like it has the backbone of a Modest Mouse album, but it just sounds like the most unfocused and kind of lost Modest Mouse album, especially when you compare it to their earlier stuff. Where a lot of Modest Mouse albums are very off-kilter and just strange. I feel like at times this one is just off-kilter and strange in a, not in a good way, but in a, what the fuck are you trying to do here kind of way. And not to mention that the production at times is so synthetic that it just loses a lot of the raw energy and intensity that makes Modest Mouse Modest Mouse. But that's really only as far as the negatives go, because I do think that a grand majority of the tracks here are pretty good. I think that instrumentation and songwriting is still quite strong on most tracks. It does kind of feel like Isaac and company were just kind of throwing ideas at the wall, regardless of whether or not they stuck. But I do think that most of the time they did stick, and I do think that most of the ideas here are well executed, at least in my opinion. I don't think it's a bad album. I think it gets a bit too much hate. I still think it's a respectable album. It's just easy to see why it gets the amount of hate it does when you look at, what they released in the late 90s, early 2000s. But despite the flaws that are there, admittedly, I still think that most of this album is very enjoyable. And sure, Pistol exists, but so does Lampshades on Fire, and that's one of my favorite Modest Mouse songs. So I leave it at that.
All right.
Well,
I
no,
guess.
I seem like a negative Nancy now.
This is how it's gonna be. My favorite tracks from Sad Sappy Sucker are Worms vs. Birds, Wagon Ride Return, Classy Plastic Lumber, Every Penny Fed Car, My Seat Cheese, and Race Car Grin, You Ain't No Landmark. And my least favorite tracks are Everything at the Back End and the Blue Cadet.
My favorites from We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank are March to the Sea, Fly Trapped in a Jar, and Little Motel. And my least favorites are Dashboard, Fired Up, and People as Places as People.
My favorite tracks on Strangers to Ourselves were Lampshades on Fire, The Ground Walks with Time in a Box, Coyotes, Pups to Dust, Wicked Campaigns, The Best Room. My least favorite tracks were Pistol, obviously, Ansel, and Sugar Boats.
Favorites: Pistol.
Just Pistol.
Podcast ends.
What's the best
the
Modest
only-
Mouse song? Pistol.
N.
Of course.
No, that's not the full title.
I don't know. I don't fucking know the title. I just know it as Pistol. I don't care.
Something Andrew Cunanan and then a bunch of fucking coordinates and a Wi-Fi password or something. I don't know.
Anyways, moving on to our number 7 picks. I chose We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank.
I chose Sappy Sad Sucker.
I
Damn it!
chose-
I fucked up the order. Sad Sappy Sucker.
All right, my mishap gets excused. My number, what is 7?
Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, Interstate 8. I could have put it 8, but I won't.
Nostalgia.
No!
Guys. I
No!
will continue.
That's not
Before-
okay.
I
That
love
is
this
literally not
album.
okay. I'm actually crying.
Guys.
I'm actually fucking crying.
Guys, listen. I love Interstate 8. I just really love Modest Mouse.
You put it lower than fucking We Were Dead.
Yeah.
Ah!
Guys,
Well-
come on. It's not.
I'm dissolving.
Am I supposed to go first now after that? Or
Yes.
Please.
All right.
I beg.
As I already said, I love this album. I think it's a fantastic album. I just prefer some other releases, and it just doesn't, I think, justify a higher spot on this list when a lot of the tracks I feel could be found on what are, in my opinion, better releases. I think the biggest thing it has going for it is Edit the Sad Parts. The only place that can be found, as far as I'm aware, is a bonus track, and I don't care about bonus tracks. It's a really good album, well, EP. I think it works as a very good companion piece to their debut. I just think it doesn't have the overall quality and depth that some of the releases I put above this have, and I can't really justify putting it any higher as much as I do love it.
I'm shaking and crying right now.
Me too.
Dude, I knew this was gonna be fucking. As soon as I finished all the albums and gave them all a fucking 8 out of 10, I knew this was gonna be bad.
The one band that I don't have that many hot takes on. This fucking happens.
Well, someone has to bring in the hot takes.
To be fair,
More
I'm
to
getting
come.
mad at you for liking an album. That's the sad part.
Alright, I'm just gonna knock out Sad Sappy Sucker since this is a pretty easy one to talk about. I don't hate it. There's plenty of songs on here that I think are good. And as like a compilation, I'd say it's probably like a 6 out of 10. It's just there's a lot of like pointless detours. And I like it's only like 24 minutes, so it doesn't irritate me enough to warrant like a lower score. It's just I also don't think like for me it's like every album after this one is gonna be 8 out of 10 or above. So I don't know. I'm good at words.
Yeah, I chose We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank, and while I do think this album does have its shining moments, it's just a really inconsistent mixed bag for me, much like most of the material that came post Good News for People Who Love Bad News. And on one hand, there's a few songs, I thought were really good, but then just stuff that I just didn't give a shit about. I guess that just comes down to the songwriting for me just being not as interesting, and the instrumentals just being just cookie cutter, nothing really special. But there are some bops on here, and I can get the catchy moments, and I feel like, I don't know, those moments kind of feel few and far in between on this record in particular. But with that being said, I don't think it's bad, I just think it's decent, and I'll just leave it at that.
We'll do same order for best and worst tracks. I just need to find my notes for Interstate 8.
Yeah, sure.
Alright.
My favourite tracks from We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank were March Into the Sea, Dashboard, and Spitting Venom. My least favourite track is Steam and Genius.
My favorites from Sad Sappy Sucker, I Did It, are Birds vs. Worms, Four Fingered Fisherman, Dukes Up, Every Penny Fed Car, and my least favorites are I actually bothered to pick the worst of the detours. That's how you know I'm a loser. Think Long, Secret Agent X9, BMX Crash, and Sucker Bet.
That was actually all a song title as well. My favorite tracks were Interstate 8, Sleepwalking, Tundra Desert, Edit the Sad Parts. I really don't have a least favorite. If I had to pick, my emphasis on least favorite is All Night Diner, which is still a great song.
I love that song.
I do too.
I'm crying.
This was a hard worst to best.
Oh shit. Moving on to our number 6 pick. I chose This Is a Long Drive for Someone with Nothing to Think About.
I'll go last.
It pains me to put this at 6 because I really do love this project. It's just, I love their other projects a bit more. Building Something Out of Nothing from number 6.
Exactly what she said. I put Good News for People Who Like Bad News. It's my opinion!
No! It's wrong! Nostalgia, you're hurting me. I have so many good memories with that album.
So do I.
I'm
I
crying.
love this album.
I'm fucking shaking. I'm actually shaking.
Guys, I love this album. I love it.
This is like what would have happened if y'all let me on the Radiohead episode. Jesus Christ.
This would probably be Louis.
True.
No, Louis would have it last.
Louis would die if I were on that episode. Anyway.
Radiohead Worst Best Redux coming soon.
Hell
God,
yeah.
no, my opinions haven't changed. I'd be open
Me
to
neither.
that because the episode is quite crap and our audio equipment is Xbox 360 Call of Duty voice chat worthy, but my opinion has not changed.
Maybe when we reach a milestone. Anyway, I chose This Is a Long Drive for Someone with Nothing to Think About. There's things about this album that I enjoy, and I think it's good. I like the production. I especially love a lot of the slick guitar work on here. I like a lot of Isaac Brock's wild vocal performances, and I like the boldness of his honest lyricism. But other than that, I just don't I don't enjoy listening to this album in its entirety. I'd listen to a lot of the songs from it, alright, but ultimately it just feels way too long, and it's just gotten way too monotonous to warrant another full listen, as it's 74 minutes, and almost every song on here just gets drawn out and sounds exactly the same. Don't get me wrong, I like a lot of songs on here, and I could definitely see myself returning to those select songs, but the rest of the album does so little for me. I'm now about to leave the podcast.
You're killing me, Mickey.
I'm sorry.
That's a bruh moment.
Am I going?
Sure.
Yeah.
Alright. This may technically be a compilation, but I view it like an album, just because it's so cohesive and the song quality is so solid. While, I do have it this low just because, I really, really love, their, first 4 records and that sort of era. That's not to say that this compilation I wouldn't say is, essential. Or it is essential. I can talk. It's essential, it's cohesive, and it has a lot of really good material on here. And it also has the Interstate 8 song, so how can you not like it?
Alright, I have to justify this. I do love this album. I know 6 seems harsh. I have to keep saying that because I really do like this album.
I love how you said that for our last 2 picks.
I have to, because it looks bad. It's 6, but you have to realize the situation we're in. I'm positive Andy over here. I think this is easily for me the most optimistic and bright Modest Mouse album, but in a very tongue-in-cheek, almost sarcastic kind of way. Over the years I've met a fair few idiots on Rate Your Music who pretty much say this is where Modest Mouse went downhill. This is way too commercial. What happened to them? And it's not commercial at all. I don't think it's commercial. I just think it has more bright undertones than some of the earlier albums. Yeah, it's Float On. It's a popular song, but I don't it's still a fantastic song. It's not exactly the most happy-go-lucky commercial song ever. The first line of the song is, "I drove my car into a cop car the other day." What other pop song begins with a line like that? It's just a fantastic album, full of just really off-the-wall, tongue-in-cheek, very vibrant songs. And, I think it's an essential album. I think it's an amazing album that for any other band would have probably been way higher. There's albums that I connect to more.
Fair enough.
If I could, add to what you're saying a bit, I feel like a lot of people who say that they went downhill on Good News don't understand that there's a difference between being accessible and corporate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fine line there, and it's Float On is an accessible song, but if you were listening to a lot, if you listen to a lot of the stuff that was popular in 2004, it is nuts that is a hit. That sounds nothing like what was on the radio at the time.
Yeah, spitting facts right here.
Yeah,
even when I look at some live performances of the song on late night TV, and Isaac Brock is just maniacally fucking screaming, it just seems a bit like he just doesn't belong on
so corporate,
TV.
Bro.
Yeah, it's still Modest Mouse. It's just an odd
about
setting
death,
for them.
It's so corporate, bro.
They were selling out, I tell ya.
Okay, Rate Your Music
all the
users,
boomers
we
in
album
their
of the
fucking
year.
all the boomers in their tuxedo trying to sell Modest Mouse to kids, brainwash them.
You ever heard The View, kid?
Oh. You ever hear of the moon in Antarctica?
Bro, my kid listened to the album once and now he shot our family dog.
Wow. You shot your wild pack of family dogs.
Okay, moving on to our best tracks from each of our picks. My favorites from...
libtards.
Shut up. My favorite tracks from fuck's sake. This is a long drive for someone with nothing to think about. My favorite tracks were Dramamine, Breakthrough, Novocaine Stain, Talking Shit About a Pretty Sunset, Make Everyone Happy, and Space Travel is Boring. My least favorite tracks are Dog Paddle and Ohio.
My favorite tracks from Building Something Out of Nothing are Never Ending Math Equation, Interstate 8, Medication, Working on Leaving the Living, and All Night Diner, with my least favorites being Broke and Sleepwalking.
My favorite tracks were Ocean Breeze, Salty, Bury Me With a Dance Hall, Bukowski, The View, One Chance, and of course, Float On. My least favorite track, if I had to choose, was Blame It on the Titans.
Alright. Number 5. Top 5. Alright, my number 5 pick is Interstate 8.
My number 5 pick is This Is a Long Drive for someone with nothing to think about.
My number 5 pick is Building Nothing Out of Something.
Alright. Yeah, this EP is very good to say the least. It has some... Is it fair to call them B-sides, or is that just incorrect?
Some B-sides, some bonus tracks.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Just good tracks with nowhere to call home.
Yeah. And a few live versions and some demos. I don't care for all that shit. I'm basing my opinion on the studio tracks alone, and from those, I think this is an incredible EP. I love the instrumentation on here. It's what you would normally expect. I love a lot of the guitar work on here, and Isaac Brock, of course. God, of course. And for its short duration, it manages to do a lot, as it contains, some fantastic tracks, some of my favorite Modest Mouse tracks. From them, they're possibly some of my favorites. There's only really one song that I don't really care for all that much from this, but honestly, it's a fun listen. I had a really good time listening to this EP. And yeah, that's it.
See, I liked all the tracks, therefore I like the album more than even though I put it 7. So take that.
Okay.
I actually only put it 7 so I can get hate.
Okay, Modest Michal.
I'm Ken Goji. Okay,
no.
I'm crying a little that I have this at 5, but this is a long try. For, a studio debut, it is so impressive that they were able to capture something this, immensely emotional and atmospheric. And frankly, the only reason it's this low is just because I connect with some of their other albums more. But something I would like to add, as I talk about these next few, is I kind of think about, their first 4 records as, different seasons. And this one being fall, because it has a very, sort of, dreary, but, sort of chill vibe to it, but it's not, freezing, say, Moon Antarctica is. If that makes sense. It's got, a very autumn vibe to it, and that's something that I really appreciate about it, since most bands don't get me to think of something like that specific for each album. I don't know, I thought it was interesting to mention.
Oh,
it was?
I picked Building Nothing Out of Something. As you said earlier, for a compilation album, this is very, cohesive, and it really comes together quite spectacularly. These just don't sound like tracks that all came from different sources. I think that it was put together with a lot of attention to detail as to, what to keep, what to leave in. It's just a very emotional, very retrospective, intimate album. I really don't think the compilation label does it justice. I think this is easily up there with their better studio albums. I even think it's higher up in my rankings than a lot of admittedly really good studio albums. I think every track on here feels like it's, fits into a larger narrative and feels like it belongs here, and, it doesn't really have any bad tracks, honestly. It's a fantastic compilation album, even though, I really don't see it that way either.
Hard agree. My favorite tracks from Interstate 8 are Sleepwalking and Tundra Desert. My least favorite track was All Night Diner.
Hey, were you not fucking chatting shit when I put that?
No, I was the one chatting shit.
Alright.
Know your
Y'all are
place.
gonna kill me when I say my least favorite for that one, then. Alright, my favorites for This Is a Long Drive are Dramamine, Breakthrough, Beachside Property, Might, and Exit Does Not Exist. My least favorites being Custom Concern and Talking Shit About a Pretty Sunset.
My favorites on Building Nothing Out of Something were Never Ending Math Equation, Interstate 8, Broke, Working on Leaving the Living, A Life of Arctic Sound, Whenever You Breathe Out, I Breathe In, and Medication.
Alright.
I don't have a least favorite.
Alright, moving on to our number 4 picks. I chose The Lonesome Crowded West.
That's edgy.
Is it?
For my number 4, Interstate 8. Yeah, a lot of people usually have like Lonesome at like 1 or 2.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
You're so edgy.
You're the controversial one now.
Yeah.
Don't worry,
At least I'm not getting fucking bitchy about it. Calm down.
I'm going to steal your thunder because I put We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank at number 4.
At 3?
4!
Oh, okay. I didn't sleep last night. Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
That's how we prepare for every episode as well.
I'm nocturnal.
I sleep? What do you mean?
Okay.
Well, I'll speak for myself.
Yeah,
What
you
is
get up at like
rest?
fucking 2
the
in
last
the day.
episode, the last episode, I had to fucking wake up and then record first thing after like sleeping for 3 hours, and I was surprisingly coherent.
Surprisingly.
Maybe I should sleep less. Maybe that's the magic, because I got good night's sleep last night.
No.
I'm
The
saying
sleep I
sappy sap
got
sucker.
was like
No,
I fucking
sleep,
passed
sleep.
out in my. I passed out in a Google Meet earlier for like 2.5 hours, and that's all the sleep I've gotten today.
Modest Mouse brought to you by Insomnia.
Hell yeah. Anyways, music.
Alright, I chose the
Music.
Lonesome Crowded West. I think this album is fantastic, just to say the least. I think it's spotless from front to back, and it pains me to put it at number 4. And honestly, despite the challenging enough length that was an issue for me on This Is a Long Drive, The Lonesome Crowded West is a lot more exciting. It's a lot more energetic. The writing is just really good. I fucking love the writing on here. The vocals are fantastic. And it just kept my attention the whole way through. And the guitar work on this album cannot go understated, as it is infectious as hell and absolutely brilliant. Like, it has some incredibly memorable moments in terms of both its songwriting and in instrumentation, and it just goes by so quick despite its length. And honestly, it's just so good. Like, it's some of my favorite Modest Mouse songs are on here, and honestly, I'll just be babbling on. That's all I really have to say. I fucking love this album. Pains me to put it at 4, but there's 3 more that I prefer.
Number 4, Interstate 8. I view this EP like a more refined version of the debut. Like, they cut a lot of like the. I don't like calling them filler tracks because I do really like the album, but if I'm entirely honest with myself, that's kind of what they are. And it just packs all of like the really good songs into like a condensed 5-track EP, and I really like that quality about it. Yeah, it's basically like everything I like about the debut, just more like refined and condensed.
Yeah, I think this album is really underrated. It feels like, to me, the most cartoony and theatric Modest Mouse album, and I think that pretty much every track on here is gripping, it's memorable, it's just filled with a plethora of moments that are just chaotic and abstract, and there's just not a single dull moment here for me. Not to mention that Johnny Marr is one of my favorite guitarists of all time, and I don't know, I just get really excited at even the prospect of, the world of, the Smiths and Modest Mouse coming together, and I think his guitar work does add a lot to the, overall sonic atmospheres and instrumentation of the album, and I think it's great. I don't think there's a single bad track here.
That's fair. See, I'm not gonna bitch about it. You know.
Well, I am.
I just
Fuck
look
you,
mean
nostalgia.
now, so
Okay.
I look mean.
I look drunk.
Well,
Fucking
now that you
Irish
expose
people,
yourself.
My God.
All right. My favorite tracks from the Lonesome Crowded West were "Doing the Cockroach," "Cowboy Dan," "Shitluck," and "Styrofoam Boots." And my least favorite track is "Out of Gas" and "Trucker's Atlas." If I had to pick least favorites.
My favorites on Interstate 8 are Interstate 8, All Night Diner, y'all are mean, Edit the Sad Parts, and my least favorites, I'm gonna say the full title, Sleepwalking, parentheses, Couples Only Dance Prom Night, parentheses.
Ah, yes.
Well done. My favorites were... Wait, on We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank.
Professional
were,
podcast.
Yes.
yes, in case anyone forgot. March into the Sea, Dashboard, Fire It Up, Parting of the Sensory, We've Got Everything, Education, Little Motel, Spitting Venom. If I had to pick a least favorite, I'd go for Miss the Boat.
Top 3. For my number 3 pick, I chose "Building Something Out of Nothing."
For my number 3 pick, I picked The Lonesome Crowded West.
For my number 3 pick, I chose the Blue Album.
Ooh-wee! No, imagine Isaac Brock singing Buddy Holly.
That would be the best shit ever.
Like
I would
screaming
pay,
I would
I would
kill
pay to
for
see
that.
Bruh. My
Ooh-wee,
actual...
ooh, I look just like Buddy Holly.
No,
My actual number 3 pick is This Is a Long Drive for somebody with nothing to think about.
all right. So yeah, I chose
Number
building.
1, Pinkerton. Sorry.
All right, "Building Something Out of Nothing," a compilation album that consists of singles and some tracks from Interstate 8 that are. Is it fair to say they feel a bit more like cleaned up and polished? Is that kind of a fair assessment, or am I just
No, it's not
or
fair.
am I just fucking dumb?
I don't really know the difference, but I'm an idiot with like mixing and shit, so
Well, it's just
my opinion doesn't
I
count.
think it's fair.
all right. To say the least, it's a bit more accessible to the listener. And personally, I don't think that's a bad thing, as this compilation to me is just incredible. Like, it's definitely up there with some of my favorite compilation albums, and it's just so good. Like, it's for a compilation, it's so cohesive in its structures. Like, the new material on here just kicks ass. Like, I love a lot of the content of the songs in terms of its lyricism. Like, Isaac Brock never really failed for me on that front. Instrumentation is very good on here as well. The signature hypnotic guitar work is always great. No track overstays its welcome. They remain interesting to me the whole way through. And in the context of like this comp, like the tracks from Interstate 8 just were improved immensely for me for some reason. Like, I feel like, especially the ones that I didn't feel as interested in, like one in particular is my favorite track in the album, and it's, I don't know, it's weird, but it's so good. It goes by relatively fast for me. I love listening to it, and that's all I really need to say. I think this comp is fucking amazing. That's all that needs to be said.
That is fair, because it is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Alright.
Yes.
Oh
Alright,
shit!
for
I
Lonesome
just
Crowded
spilled my
West.
fucking beer. God fucking.
Good job.
Bruh.
To go back to my season analogy so I can feel special, the Lonesome Crowded West makes me think of like summer, but not like a fun summer, because I'm an Arizonan. I'm thinking like our summers as in like the insidious like 128 degree like the heat almost like builds like a cocoon around you. It's hard to explain, and it's super like sweaty. It's just that kind, but in a good way, if that makes sense. Like, it puts you in that atmosphere of like stress, but it's intentional and it's almost cathartic the way it does that. I feel like I'm making this album sound really unappealing, but it's really good. That's what I'm trying to say. And the only thing really keeping it number 3 for me is just because I feel like it kind of drags a bit. Similarly to the debut album, like it's a bit too long, but I still really, really like it. Please don't think I was insulting it with my summer analogy.
Yeah, you were insulting it, and that's why you put it third.
Boo.
Oh, me, yeah.
Yes, you.
You exist.
Their debut is what I'm talking about, in case anyone forgot. To me, I think it kind of feels like the Modest Mouse equivalent of a Section 80, an album that has, right off the bat, plenty of great ideas, loads of talent, charm. It's very to the point, well structured, but the only its biggest flaw in my eyes are the albums that followed it. This is still a fantastic project. It's really focused. The instrumentation is very atmospheric, very bleak at times, and it's just incredible. I think that, it has this very raw aesthetic to it. The production, the lo-fi production just works really well here. I think it's got so much passion, so many great ideas. It's a very strong album, and, it would definitely be higher up if this band didn't make what are, in my opinion, two absolute masterpieces. That being said, I still love this album, and I still listen to it quite regularly. I have for a while. And Dramamine is a masterpiece. I love that song. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right. Are we on best tracks now?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. My favorite tracks from Building Something Out of Nothing are All Night Diner, Interstate 8, Broke, Medication, Sleepwalking, and Other People's Lives, and I have no least favorites.
Alright, my favorites are Heart Cook's Brain, Lounge, Closing Time, Convenient Parking, Cowboy Dan, and Shit Luck. And my least favorites are Out of Gas and Trucker's Atlas. Do we have the same least favorites? I think we did.
I think we did, yeah.
Damn.
Hell
Sorry
yeah.
for interrupting you. I just realized that.
It's fine. My favorites were Dramamine, Custom Concern, Breakthrough, Beachside Property, Tundra Desert, Exit Does Not Exist, Talking Shit About a Pretty Sunset, Make Everyone Happy, Mechanical Birds, and Lounge. My least favorite was probably Dog Paddle.
I had that at my least favorites too.
Hype.
Alright, we're in the top 2. We made it.
2.
Now, my number 2 pick, The Moon in Antarctica.
My number 2 pick is Good News for People Who Love Bad News.
My number 2 pick is The Lonesome Crowded West. We've got some variety with our picks here.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I like that.
Yeah, on The Moon in Antarctica, Modest Mouse go absolutely all out in terms of both compositions, production, and songwriting. The lyrics on this album are definitely some of the most philosophical in Modest Mouse catalog, and that characteristic makes this album stand out in their discography. Plus, it's like you're being run over by a truck of emotion, for most of these tracks. It's so good. Instrumentation on this album is very interesting to me. It places a lot more emphasis on the somewhat, psychedelic sound, with a lot of the guitar instrumentation being a lot more hypnotic and dreamlike. I think it's excellent. I think it's executed very well. It's played very well. And I find it to be a relatively easy listen. It engaged me the whole way through. Felt like it went faster than it actually was, and it left me with plenty of great tracks. And it just, it definitely, it's pretty much flawless for me. And I definitely see myself returning to this one, and I think this album is great. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Alright. Well, I'm gonna get this out of the way real quick. This is what I view as the spring album, but to explain why I like this one so much in particular, I want to highlight a memory I have with it, where it was my freshman year of high school, and I was having just the worst day. I was in a terrible mood. I got into the car, getting ready to drive home, and I throw on my headphones and I shuffle my playlist, and then Float On comes on. And as corny as this might sound, because it's fucking Float On, I just felt like everything was just going to be okay. And I, like, relaxed. I just relaxed so much. And I felt almost comforted by the sort of, like, weirdly chipper spirit to the song. I mean, chipper by Modest Mouse standards. It's just, this album, it acknowledges that there's a lot of shitty things in life, but I feel like the thing about it that makes me so happy when I listen to it is it acknowledges that and it tells you it's going to be okay even despite all those things. I just love, like, the honesty of it. Even if it's quote-unquote more accessible, it makes me feel so good when I listen to it. And I also think that's part of why it reminds me of, like, spring. Because it's a very bright, cheery part of the year where everything's blooming, everything is happy. I made that cohesive, damn.
That was great.
I can talk. Hell yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
me now?
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
I love how you said that in like such a monotone, like okie dokie.
I'm done
Okie dokie.
preaching, it's alright.
Yes. The Lonesome Crowded West, for me, stands as, like, the most passionate and intense Modest Mouse album ever. Just anytime I listen to this album, I get blown away with just how raw and unhinged and bold it is. And it comes together to create an album that's larger than life. I don't know how else to explain it. It, understandably took years for people to fully understand this album and for it to gain its cult classic status, but I think it deserves that status. I think it's one of the best albums I've ever heard. The production is fantastic. The instrumentation is intense. It's, really overwhelming at times, as with the vocals. The vocals are overwhelming at times. The songwriting is really dark, often very cryptic. It's always intimate, and, this album just takes you on a fucking trip, and it's fantastic, and it's hard to compare this to anything else in their discography, really, or just when it comes to music in general. I feel like this album and the album I put first just both sit in, like, their own bubbles of just greatness.
Alright. My favourite tracks from The Moon and Antarctica are Gravity Rides Everything, Tiny Cities Made of Ashes, The Cold Part, What People Are Made Of, Lives, The Stars Are Projectors, and Wild Packs of Family Dogs. And my least favourite track, if I had to pick, would be Life Like Weeds.
My favorites on Good News for People Who Love Bad News are Float On, Ocean Breeze Salty, Bury Me With It, Dance Hall, and The View. And my least favorites are I don't know how to say it. Bukowski? Something like that.
It's Bukowski.
I don't know. That.
If you're Polish, it's Bukowski.
I'm
if you're anyone
very
else, it's
not
Bukowski.
Polish.
Of course.
Alright.
Number one.
My picks, mate.
Oh yeah, shit.
Don't do me dirty.
Sorry.
My favorite
forgot,
picks
I'm tired,
were
leave me
Teeth Like God's Shoe Shine, Hard Cook's Brain, Convenient Parking, Jesus Christ Was an Only Child, Dune the Cockroach, Cowboy Dan, Trailer Trash, Trucker's Atlas, Polar Opposites, Bankrupt on Selling, Styrofoam Boots, It's All Nice on Ice, Alright, and my least favorite track was Long Distance Drunk.
That's me right now. Alright.
Right.
Now we can
we're
move on
here.
to number one. Good News for People Who Love Bad News is my favourite Modest Mouse album.
Not only is The Moon and Antarctica my number one Modest Mouse album, it is actually my 8th favorite album of all time. So, the more you know.
Hell yeah.
Well, I don't think I have a defined ranking, but Modest Mouse, The Moon and Antarctica is definitely in, like, my top 10. And
Hey.
it's obviously, by process of elimination, my favorite Modest Mouse album.
Hell yeah.
I think we'll start since we have the same pick. And Mick, you're the only one who's not predictable, so you can go that.
You see, I can be predictable. I'm not just falling in with the crowd.
Do you want to start, Charlise?
Sure. Guys, this is the winter album. I don't know if you could think of that. No. it it's hard to almost put into words why I love this album so much because it's such like an experience. I always like when I listen to it, I always like vividly imagine myself in like a light blue like icy like cave, but like and I'm like super cold and like with a coat, but I'm not like freezing and uncomfortable. It's more just like peaceful kind of, which is weird because it's such like a sad album. But I always just feel like a sense of like sort of nirvana when I listen to it. Like I'm almost entranced by the music, and there are very, very few records that do that to me. And there's also very few records that are quite as like beautiful and profoundly written as this one. And I really just think like if you're looking at Modest Mouse as a whole, or even like albums in general, like this is just such like an obvious masterpiece to me. I love it a lot. If you don't listen to anything else on this list and you haven't listened to Modest Mouse, please do me the favor and listen to this one. I love it so much. All right.
Yeah, for me personally, there was zero competition before I even started any notes, before I started anything. I just put number one, Moon in Antarctica, and then I got on with everything else. It's a perfect album in my eyes. I think it does so many things so outstandingly, amazingly, that it really does take, in my opinion, several listens to fully, connect with and understand, and thus was the case with me. I'll get into a bit of a story afterwards. The instrumentals, I think they're absolutely perfect. They're so poignant, and they walk the line between twisted and beautiful, and they just set this very desolate and almost lost atmosphere for this album. And songwriting, I think, is at its most intimate, at its most memorable and poignant in the band's whole career. It just feels so, as I said, desolate and haunted, that there's really no other album that I can think of, not only in the band's discography, but in general, that I can even begin to compare to this album, whether it be sonically or thematically or instrumentally or anything. And it's also worth mentioning that if I was to compile a list of my top 5 favorite Modest Mouse songs, 4 of them would be on this album. Now, for my history with this album, this was the first album I've ever heard from the band, and when I first heard it, I might have been like 14. I didn't really connect with it all that much, but I did definitely think it was a good album. But anytime I listen to this now, I get flashbacks to a certain point in my life where I used to, pretty much every night that I didn't have school on, I would walk 2 hours down country roads into my closest town. I get drunk with my friends, just, whatever, do things a teenager would do, and then I'd walk home, usually at like 4 or 5 a.m., just down dark country roads without a flashlight, because I was conserving battery just so I could listen to this album. And I pretty much did this religiously every single time I walked down those, dark Irish country roads. And it really did set the atmosphere for, the desolate and kind of lost themes of this album perfectly. And that was kind of the time where I really started to connect with this album more. And every track just kind of took on a new meaning, and it felt like I was kind of transported there. And, I think this is what the album's going for. When it comes to the title, there's probably no places more desolate than the moon and Antarctica, and it just does that perfectly. It brings you into that mindset. It pulls you into this desolate and lonely place so well that it's kind of mind-blowing, and it's one of the best albums ever made, and easily the best Modest Mouse album in my opinion.
I think I'm gonna cry.
It is.
Bro, I was getting drunk. It's not that sad.
It's just.
I do think it's funny though that like I think we both like discovered the band at like the same age, because I was also 14.
Mm.
And it was good news that I had listened to first, but then I like immediately binged their discog because I loved it so much.
Another one of the very rare occasions where I have to thank 4chan.
What
They
the
were-
fuck?
Dude, the Moo board. If not for Moo, I don't know what I'd be listening to. I'd probably be an Eminem stan. Most of the albums that I found when I was like, I don't know, 12 to 14, and I grew obsessed with like Loveless, Moon and Antarctica, Twin Fantasy, all of them I found on Moo.
I just found them because of my ex. He just really liked music.
Everyone has a dark past.
I only found out about them because we were
Mine
doing
was on
this
Moo as a
podcast.
13-year-old. Yeah, no, everyone had. Yeah, my
I
past
discovered it through
revolves
the
around Moo.
Taped podcast.
Mine just revolves around this podcast. So anyway, yeah, I chose good news
Yeah.
for people who love bad news, and underrated, very underrated in my opinion. Like I unironically love this
Hell
album
yeah.
to death, and for all the fucking
Hell yeah.
for all the fucking elitists who think this album is shit because it just marked the downward spiral, just fuck off, leave. I genuinely don't want you
Yeah,
here.
Preach.
fuck you,
Like genuinely,
Preach.
fuck you, Gerald.
Preach.
cunt.
Fuck you,
Like-
Jalila.
Of course, Isaac, please. The instrumentals on here, obviously they're a lot more clean this time around, but it just still maintains that feeling of it's a Modest Mouse album. Like, Isaac's songwriting is just, as sincere and as thoughtful as I want it to be on any Modest Mouse album. I love the guitar work on here. It's extremely catchy. The instrumentation as a whole is catchy. What am I even saying? Fuck's sake.
Hole is a catchy.
Fuck's sake. I love a lot
Bro,
of
it's
the wild.
catchy.
It's catchy, yes, it's catchy. I love a lot of the wild moments in the track list. There's some great fucking songs in here. And the slower cuts as well are just brilliant, to say the least. And the album flew by for me. It was just so much fun to listen to. It may not be the most loved or acclaimed album, but it's just really fun to listen to for me. I love how just like somewhat bright it is, while still maintaining just the sincere and like thoughtful songwriting. And yeah, that's just all I really have to say. I love this album, and fuck you elitists.
Love
Thank
him
you,
or hate
Isaac.
him, he do
Thank you,
be
Isaac.
spitting facts, though. Thank
And
you, Isaac.
Thank you, Isaac, for making songs.
Thank you, Isaac, for making Modest Mouse a thing.
Thank you, Isaac, for making the sick fucking shirt I'm wearing.
And
I
also,
love it.
surprise. Thank you, Isaac, for joining us today on this episode of the Tape Podcast. Woo! Woo! He's been here the whole
Hi,
time.
I'm Isaac Brock. I don't know how he talks. I just assume it's like this. Any questions for me?
Isaac, ignore
Isaac,
her.
Isaac,
Just please
what's-
come on to the podcast. We like to interview you.
Isaac's here. What are you on about?
I am Isaac.
Isaac,
No, it's Craig.
Isaac,
He's an
I have a genuine
imposter.
question. I have a genuine question, Isaac.
What?
What's your favorite Modest Mouse album?
Strangers to
Origin
ourselves.
Cemetery. I can't.
Isaac, you prefer Muse over Radiohead?
I prefer Coldplay.
Oh Christ, no!
Chris Martin's a nice guy.
Can we stop?
You guys ever heard a Handful of Dreams?
Alright, for the next episode, we're gonna have Muse worst to best with,
Coldplay worst to best.
No, you know what we're doing?
Can we
We're not
finish?
doing another. No, we'll finish after I announce the next episode. We're not gonna redo our Radiohead worst to best in case we're gonna have Chris Martin on for a special episode where we rank the Coldplay, Muse, and Radiohead albums together, and it's gonna be spectacular.
And then Isaac Brock cries in the corner because I said Strangers to Ourselves is bad.
No, we're just gonna
Yeah,
get
we're
Matt
sticking
Bellamy
fish
on
in.
for the Radiohead worst to best.
He'd just be like, you guys like simulation theory?
I'm gonna put Kid A number one because it reminds me the most of synthwave.
He fucking would.
He probably would.
He fucking
Anyway,
would.
Okay, my favorite.
Oh,
tracks-
favorite tracks. That's important.
Yeah,
Oh.
my favorite tracks from Good
Oops.
News for people who love bad news are all of them. I love them.
Here, stop it.
Okay, I have no least favorites. I love every track on here.
Okay, my favorites. Third Planet, which is my favorite Modest Mouse song ever. Dark Center of the Universe, Tiny Cities Made of Ashes, A Different City, and The Cold Part. And if you held a fucking gun to my head and literally forced me to pick a least favorite, I guess Wild Pack of Family Dogs, but I fucking love that song, so I feel bad for even saying that.
My favorites on the Moon and Antarctica were Third Planet, Gravity Rides Everything, Dark Center of the Universe, Perfect Disguise, Tiny Cities Made of Ashes, Different City, The Cold Part, Alone Down There, The Stars Are Projectors, Wild Pack of Family Dogs, Paper Thin Walls, I Came as a Rat, Life Like Weeds, What People Are Made of. If you haven't noticed, that's the full album. I also do not have a least favorite, but once again, if I was in a really strange hostage situation where they were asking me about my least favorite track on the Moon and Antarctica, I would probably say A Wild Pack of Family Dogs, yes.
I'd say Pistol.
I also scribbled all over my notes by accident.
What's your least favorite on the Moon and Antarctica? I'm Isaac Brock. Probably Pistol.
No, sorry.
He won't come on the podcast if we keep fucking mocking his accent.
We're...
I don't know what his accent is. I don't know how he talks. I genuinely don't.
Me neither, but I'm assuming he has a southern accent.
He actually doesn't talk. He only sings.
He's mute. He's mute.
He's a modest mouse. He's too modest to speak.
No wonder why he wasn't been talking. He's been here the whole time, but he hasn't been talking.
The other bandmates have to boot him on every time they're performing a song. They have to turn him on.
Isaac Bosch.
He's actually like a werewolf, except instead of turning into a wolf, it's a mouse.
Isaac Bosch.
Isaac Mouse.
Anyways, that's it.
That.
We did it. We ranked most of Modest Mouse discography. Charlise, thanks for coming on.
I had a good time. And I would like to say, as a message to my boyfriend who's coming on for 9 Inch Nails, hesitation marks is the worst one. Fuck you, stop lying to yourself.
Mick,
yeah.
Do you want to announce what we're doing next week?
Well, it was kind of spoiled already, but we are doing a 9 Inch Nails worst to best.
With Trent Reznor, her boyfriend.
Yep.
Yes, Trent is coming on.
Isaac Brock had a blast being on this episode. I'm really happy you guys let me on. You guys got any more questions? I gotta go be modest. I'm kind of a weremouse, so like, the full moon's almost out.
Yeah, it's getting late. We don't want to keep him up. He's gonna transform.
He's gonna transform into a weremouse.
If I start asking for cheese, that's when you know you gotta run.
He's gonna transform to a fucking weremouse, of course. Anyways, yeah, do you wanna plug anything, Charlise?
Yeah, just follow me on Album of the Year. I'm CLJesse. Yeah, I'm the one that wrote that Microphones in 2020 review. You're welcome.
Rob tries to hide it, but he can't hide the truth.
It got like 70 likes. He failed. Yeah, I guess my Twitter at CL is eternal. Just my YouTube, CLJesse. Most of my shit is just CLJesse.
Yeah, I'll put it in the description anyway.
Hell yeah.
Most of the people listening are from Album of the Year, so...
Well, let's just hope we...
Y'all already know me, I'm famous.
Yeah, if you're not from Album of the Year, ignore what we were talking about. You probably don't know anything.
If you're not from Album of the Year...
I just want to say, listen to my band, Modest Mouth.
If you're not from Album of the Year... If you're not from Album of the Year, just fucking sub to my YouTube or something and follow me on Album of the Year.
Bruh. If you're not an Album of the Year, what are you at? What are you doing?
You're on fucking rate your music.
I use RYM.
Who are you?
Anyway.
Listen to music without putting a number to it. Who listens to the song and then moves on to the next?
A half star because it's accessible.
That being said, yeah, we did it.
Thanks for checking out this episode. As we mentioned, necessary links will be in the description. And yeah, see ya.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye, and thank you if you listened to the last 6 minutes of random noises. Bye.